Hello everyone, good evening. This is Vishal. I must be very happy. I'm actually very happy to share the news that finally the service allocation has been done and I got Indian Administrative Services. So you must be noting me in a very cheerful mood. Actually, that should be inspiration also to you guys. So you could be tomorrow where I am sitting, you would also be sitting and be very happy about getting your desired services. Let's move to the today discussion of the class after this announcement, and we would be talking today about urbanization, their problems and remedies. This unit, although seems to be very small, I have kept it. I have tried to elaborate various aspects of this only to ensure what we call only to take care of the point that urbanization, especially after the smart city mission and after the census data, that the level of urbanization is increasing from time to time. It is one of the government priority as well. So not only in social issues, it becomes very important in essay and optional as well. So that's why even in paper one, the urban what we call, there was a question earlier to what we call make a correlation between a smart city mission and Indus Valley civilization. So that actually says that not only for history or not only for the social issue as what we call topic, it is also important from the point of history as well. So let's move to today lecture, which is going to be a good long hour lecture, and we will be trying to discuss all the minute points related to urbanization, their problems and remedies. First of all, as I said, if you would be referring to reports, that actually what makes your answer or makes your what we call knowledge pretty much what we call vivid. It actually shows that you are referring to multiple resources and coming across good conclusion regarding the topic that you are seeing. So here I have quoted from the World Bank report. Basically, the World Bank report on urbanization has covered the entire South Asia. South Asia, I must say that South Asia is the region which is south of Himalayas, the Himalayas chain of mountains. So that's why it's called as South Asia. So basically, this report has covered the entire of South Asia. However, I have taken the parts of the section of the reports which is related to India. According to World Bank, urbanization in India is messy, hidden and slow. So you must be thinking that what actually would mean this messy, hidden and slow. So first of all, let us start to understand how does urbanization in India is slow. The third one. So as you could see that urbanization in India could be considered as slow, and that is reason because if we could try to what we call compare it from other countries, you must be noting that China at the very level, India versus it is at 45% of urbanization. Indonesia, what we call is at 54. Mexico, which is again similar developing countries, is at 87% of urbanization, and Brazil is 78% of urbanization, and Brazil is 87% of urbanization. At the same time, India becomes very an outlier given the degree of development. It is considered a developing country only. It remains an outlier with the least amount of urbanization, and that is 31% only. This is the 12th Planning Commission report, which we could think about the area around 2012. So if we think about if we know that 2012 this was the scenario, then in India it is projected that by 2050 only the urbanization would reach the 50% mark, and 50% mark was already what we call achieved by China at the time of in the year of 2012 itself. So that actually explain the very idea of slow urbanization in India as said by World Bank. Let's talk about the term hidden urbanization in India. So basically, hidden urbanization in India would talk about various towns and cities which are actually out of the municipal what we call municipal limit. So basically, although they have become town, they have become urbanized. By urbanization here, I would like to talk about the definition of urbanization. What if we take the definition from what we call census has talked about census towns in which population should be greater than 5,000. What we call there should be some specific density of population as well. Please go through the figures and please write down in the comment section. and apart from that, 75% of the people should be involved in non-agricultural occupation. So with this respect, India has a number of towns and cities. However, because of the what we call machinery, which is lagging in terms of identification, in terms of planning, India tends to have a less number of what we call tends to have a number of towns and cities which are outside urban limits, what we call the municipality, the urban local bodies limit, due to which the services, again the service delivery, as well as the other amenities that could be made available to the citizen on those areas become lacksidal. So that actually shows that hidden urbanization is also also a problem. Let's talk about this messy urbanization, Indian urbanization. Let's talk about the prominent city of Delhi itself. Delhi is now known for the amount of heat, the hotness, the amount of what we call high temperature that we are facing, list environmental pollution, especially in what we call when it comes to the winter. It is called as considered as gas chamber. There is a what we call, there are slums. The services are not available to everyone. People there, and again due to unplanned urbanization, Delhi bears disproportionate amount of migration from other part of India. For example, there was a report in the economic survey which said that 85% of migration to the urban center was towards Delhi. So that actually shows how much unplanned is our urbanization. So that would actually cover the entire topic of urbanization in India being messy, hidden and slow. So again, from the basis of definition, I am showing how what we call, how based on definition, what we call, we have different number of what we call, we have different number of what we call towns in India. So if we go about the census definition and we go about the what we call population density definition, you could see that there is a huge margin, there is a huge gap between what we call the number of towns which could be considered as city or towns, the urban center. So that actually shows that the hidden thing, it actually this graph takes care of the hidden aspects of urbanization in India. With this, let's move to the next slide. In this slide, I'm talking about the spatial pattern of urbanization. Urbanization in India is actually what we call the spatial pattern, could be more understood if we are able to understand what causes the development of a town. Let's talk about some of the town. Basically, there are political region when it comes to development of town. So political region, if we'll talk about when we talk about political regions, we can actually think about Amravati as the first example. Amravati is an example where due to shifting of capital, due to formation of new estate, a new town would be created. We could have also industrial towns. For example, prominent industrial towns would include Kanpur, it would include Jamshedpur, the famous steel city. We could also have other cities such as Visakhapatnam, Bokaro and so on. So that actually shows there could be industrial region, and then there are other regions such as what we call we could also think about holy city, and that again we can talk about Banaras somewhere here. Banaras is a holy city, then Prayagraj is another holy city. Even Sridi, the development of Sridi near Pune somewhere is an example of holy city. The entire conglomeration of the place of Sridi is due to the very what we call famous Sai temple that is present. So that actually shows that how the spatial pattern is actually related to the causes due to which industrialization or urbanization has taken place. Here I would like to talk about thinkers on urbanization. Since I am from optional sociology, since I have the optional of sociology, G.S. Gurye, the Govind Sadasiv Gurye, who is a prominent sociological scholar, sociologist, Indian sociologist, has talked about how Indian towns are just an expansion of village. What actually, according to him, is that villages tend to have what we call towns, what we call tend to have some kind of what we call trade center. As the trade center become prominent, there is an influx, there is a migration, a migration occurs, and soon it becomes what we call, to support it, various services come up in and around, and the population increases, the what we call, as a whole, then it leads to formation of what we call as cities. So that actually shows that urbanization at least till 1980 has been something that was an outgrowth of village and not directly an outcome of industrial center. That is again one of the region of formation of what we call again, region of formation of what we call urban center. With this, I have already covered the spatial variation. You could see how with time the spatial variation has increased. The density, if you could look, this is the most dense, what we call population. Most of the center, again, if you will talk about, we could actually create a division, and then again, similar division that actually shows that these areas tend to be more urbanized. On the other hand of what we call these eastern areas, the Bimaru states, popularly known as, and now it is called as the aspirational districts. I must say here, I must correct myself, actually, being a civil servant, that rather than being called Bimaru estate, there has been attitude change when it comes to the government of India by calling them aspirational district under the aspirational district program, which is under the Niti Aayog. I have to say that please comment in the viewers, that please comment in the section the name of your state and any one aspirational district that is there from your state. I would like to know your, what we call, from where you belong and which city you, what we call, which district is aspirational district in your place. So with this, you could see that in northeast also there has been less amount of urbanization. Tripura is again an outlier in this regard. So this is spatial. Again, I would like to give a hint that whenever there you talk about geography, whenever you talk about what we call regional issues, I believe that using a map of world or using a map of India would actually improve your answer writing to a great extent. Let's move to the next slide, and it is urbanization and migration. I have to say that one of the region of formation of urban center is migration. What actually happened is that urban center, there if you talk about industry, their industry comes up, the industry needs labor, the labor has to be brought from rural areas, and henceforward the urbanization migration takes place. I have to talk, since I'm from sociology background, I have to talk about M.S.A. Rao, a sociologist who has studied Yadavpur village around Delhi, and he has talked in length about how migration and urbanization are related. According to what we call the study done by M.S.A. Rao, he said that urbanization, people moving to urban center, there are certain number of trigger. Actually, what actually happens is that when a person moves to urban center, there is an increase in dignity of him and his family in the rural area. So basically the family dignity increases. Apart from that, he or she receives income which is sent back to the village, and the village people are able to utilize it. And yet again, it's but what we call consumering based class distinction comes into play. So that actually would actually help you understand why apart from employment opportunities, there are other psychological factors and social factors as well, which leads to migration from rural to urban areas. Urbanization and migration, would be dealt in more detail in the upcoming slide, in which I would be talking about problems of urbanization and migration. What we call again, skewed or disproportionate amount of migration, or non-coherent form of migration is one of the reasons due to which urbanization faces number of problems. Again, as I said, whenever you study a social issues, try to understand why we are studying from an administrative point of view, and we always study any of the topic is to understand what administrative challenges we might be facing. Here again, I would like to talk about three important challenges, and it is social security, bargaining power, and women and child. So what happens in social security is that as a person move from rural to urban areas, there is a high probability that the social security available in urban areas might not be available to him or her at that time. For opening a bank account, you need a person as a guarantee. If you're a new person, you might not be having such a what we call avenue present to you. So basically, although you have been covered in rural areas with some sort of social security, it tends to be absent when you are in urban areas. Again, the cost of living increases. If you get sick, then again, you need a larger and better social security to actually cope up with such sudden challenges. Apart from that, I would say most of the migration also occur from one state to another. And since our what we call social service schemes are not portable at this point, migration actually leads to people what we call being thrown out of the social security scheme. And again, I would like to talk about government initiative in which it has made health insurance, especially the government scheme, portable from one state to another. However, we need to take care about other forms of social security as well, and that would include education, what we call then again we can also talk about food security. A person should be able to have what we call portable food ration shop card, so that he or she is able to avail food security even when he or she has moved from his place of origin. Apart from that, when it comes to social security, other challenges that actually occurs is identification. There is a lot of cities, urban town center do not have single point of contact for migrants to come and enroll themselves, make them recognized as a migrants and avail the social security if any present. Most of them are also what we call not that much literate, not that much educated, and henceforward they are not able to take initiative to ensure that they are, even if there is a social security scheme available, they are not able to, what we call take advantage of it. Again, the next administrative challenge which actually occurs is bargaining power. Here again, one of the challenges that today's urbanization faces is that labor surplus. People tend to, what we call migrate from rural to urban areas. However, there is a labor surplus present in urban areas as well. The urban employment generation is not, catering to the needs of the people to the rate, and is not, what we call equivalent to the rate, or it's not able to, again cater to the rate at which people are migrating from rural to urban areas. So you could actually understand that if there is a surplus of labor, the bargaining power in terms of, what we call the payment, the wages is bound to decline. So that again, if the unit in what we call urban areas are, what we call are very much disjoint, they are very much done at a small scale, due to which again the bargaining power decreases as the number of employees who are present are pretty much less. So all this region leads to less bargaining power among what we call rural immigrants who are coming to urban center for employment. Let's talk about the third and important perspective, and it is woman and child. I have to mention that Article 15 have specifically mentioned the government to take its initiative to, to provide, what we call steps, positive, what we call positive what we call opportunities to women and child. So here again, if there is a request to the viewers that please write what Article 15, which clause in Article 15 deals with women and child, and please write the article and in entire in the comment section. I would review it myself. Let's move to the women and child. Yes, of course, when there is, there is a movement from rural to urban areas, women and child become the most vulnerable section. It is very popularly known that not only, being, out of social security bargaining power, women also faces challenges at workplace, such as, harassment to sexual harassment as well. Child, for them, you must have noticed whenever you go to construction site that child are being put in open areas, without much of an protection, and they are not able to avail, what we call education as well. The social security net, again, in terms of the society, the social fabric that we have. For example, if you are in rural areas, you have the extended family to take care of your child. However, that is not the scenario when a person moves from rural to urban areas, and henceforward children become more vulnerable, among the most vulnerable section when it comes to migration. Here is a request to the viewers that consider this question of administration, migration, and urbanization and migration and the related administrative challenges as a complete question in itself, and write down what solution you could come up with for the challenges that is being posed. And I must again repeat the pro tip which I have which I have discussed in the first lecture as well, and that is to write technological solution whenever there exists a social issue. Let's move to the next topic, and it is socio-cultural aspect of growth of urban settlement. When it comes to socio-cultural aspect of growth of settlement, I have to talk about, what we call how culture, not only is what we call culture is propagated in urban settlement. So there are few studies which actually talks about what kind of socio-cultural element are present when in urban settlements. For example, I would like to talk about N.K. Bose. According to his study, the whenever a person migrate from rural to urban areas, and urban settlements tend to be around in cluster. So basically, if there is a connection of caste, there is a connection of extended family, if there is a connection of language, if there is a connection of state, though all this form axis, all this form nucleus around which the cluster of urban settlement begins. So that actually shows, and yet again, if you could remember that the what we call if we talk about urbanization, even today the popular culture of kirtan, the in which we sing song in the praise of God, that is actually practiced, and it actually becomes a mode of what we call social engagement among the people who are from the similar background. So that actually shows that socio-cultural aspects, the elements are vivid and very vibrant when it comes to urbanization. Another study is that, when it comes to Srinivas, this done was M.N. Srinivas. According to him, there is a Indian towns have a mixed character. Indian city, towns could be capital cities. At the same time, it could be industrial town, and at the same time, it could be somewhere where the culture is there. It is a cultural city. It is a holy city as well. So that actually shows that there is a mixed nature of urban cities when it comes to Indian towns. Again, what we call Jagannath and Haldar, they studied, the pavement dwellers. I must repeat, the pavement dwellers in Kolkata. According to them, what actually happens among pavement dwellers is that they tend to keep close communication with with their extended family or with their family member in the rural areas. What actually happens is that, due to increased, convenient mode of coming up of convenient mode of transportation and telecommunication, this is more pronounced in today's what we call scenario. Let's move to the other area, and what we call, and it is urbanization and secularization. I have to say that secularization and secular, the term secular is two different things. Secular is something where, what happens is that what we call again I have to note this, that what actually happen there, you have to make a distinction between secularization and secular. Secular is when what we call the areas of society are removed from religious influence. They become an independent entity in itself outside the religious control. Secularization is a process in which what we call we actually attain this process. Is a secularization is a process in which, through which this process actually happens. So that is a distinction between secular and secularization. I have to say that Indian constitution has adopted a different kind of secular, and I have to say that please go through the S.R. Bommai judgment to understand what actually is Indian secularism, and write down in the comment section. I would like to review, and I must say it is one of the important, what we call feature to know, given the debate on secularism going all around, in India most of the time when it comes to either off social media or social media. So that is what I would like to talk about urbanization and secularization. Actually, there is a positive correlation when it comes to urbanization and secularization, and at the same time there is a negative correlation too. In terms of positive correlation, what actually happens is that there is an increased anonymity when it comes to urban areas, and due to which secularization actually happens. There are caste consciousness which has religious, connotation become less pronounced when it comes to urban areas, and that actually shows that there is a positive connotation between urbanization and secularization. And then again, there is a negative connotation as well, because even in urban center there is a pronounced way of showcasing that you belong to certain religion and you are being dictated according to its terms. So that actually leads to some form of what we call jingoism, the religious jingoism, and henceforward we cannot say that urbanization and secularization has only positive correlation. Let's move to the next topic, and it is impact of urbanization on the status of women. Status of women yet again become a very important topic to be discussed when it comes to impact of urbanization. What actually happens in impact of urbanization is that we could actually talk again in terms of what we call impact, which has positive impact, and then again which has negative impact. So here I would like to talk about the positive impact, and that are those positive impact are that what happens is that when a woman, of course, migrate from one place to another, especially urban areas, her what we call income is bound to increase. At the same time, and what we call, when a woman is what we call receiving income, the what status is bound to increase. Again, there is a feature of anonymity. People from women from different caste could actually get themselves employed in multiple avenues that is available. There is a chance that they would be getting informal skilling or formal skilling, and that could actually benefit the status of women. Yet again, what actually happens is that at the same time there are certain challenges as well. Especially I would like to talk about some studies that was done among the urban middle class women. What actually happened is that there is an increased incidence of women being removed from the what we call women being removed from work center, and that is one of the pronounced that is one of the what we call important what we call generalization conclusion that has been brought when it comes to impact of urbanization. This could be actually seen from the census data as well, which suggests that nearly 22% of women labor force participation rate existed, female labor force participation rate existed in 2001 census. However, it has decreased to 16% in the 2011 census. Apart from that, there has also been increased incidence of what we call domestic violence among when it comes to urban, especially middle class, families. So that actually shows that along with positive impact, there exists negative impact as well. Here I would like to request the viewers that please comment on what impact does what we call a low female labor force participation rate have on the economy of India. Let's move to the next slide. And here, as I said earlier, apart from what role migration have with respect to problems associated with urbanization, I would be also talking how urbanization has so many problems associated with it. The first one is urban sprawl. Sprawl meaning is some kind of haphazard settlement which is not organized and which does not have proper services available to them. So basically, urban sprawl is a what we call deviance from what actually is anticipated in the process of urbanization. Here again, the problem which are the administrative challenges that I have talked about, especially social security, then what we call women and child being vulnerable, and the third thing, that is bargaining power, tend to decrease, get more pronounced. The problems associated not only to the people who are living in urban sprawl, and at the same time administrative challenges to face the problems in terms of urban sprawl increases, compound get compounded. So all this thing actually leads to problem when it comes to what we call urban sprawl. Apart from that, another is problem that is associated with urbanization, and it is overcrowding. What actually happen in overcrowding is that what actually happen in terms of what we call overcrowding is that if the place is overcrowded, again the problem of services occurs. You cannot actually what we call provide them proper what we call what we call services to them. Overcrowding could also lead to what we call health hazards, such as sanitation could not be taken care of, proper sanitation, facilities of travel would be difficult. There would be more incidents, and there would be more chances of what we call spread of communicable disease as well. So all this actually showcase that what are the problems which is associated with urbanization and their impact as well. In terms of overcrowding, another challenges is that housing. If you could actually understand the importance of housing when it comes to urbanization, and I've already talked how poverty in terms of housing is an important element of poverty alleviation program as well. We have this famous what we call Indra Awas Yojana, rural and urban, only to cater the housing problem that is there in terms of urbanization. A proper house would actually solve the administrative challenge of providing services, especially when we talk about the Delhi government. They have started home delivery of services, so that was only possible to people who are living in household. Apart from that, there are other important advantage of providing housing to people who are coming to urban areas as well, which I have already talked about when it comes to the topic of poverty. Here I would like to mention how housing become pretty much a complex problem to solve. So you must understand that land has a very different level of what we call have a distinction in terms of immobile property that an Indian can hold. What actually happens is that although a person might be migrating from rural to urban areas, he or she would still be holding his or her land at his disposal only. He won't or she won't be going for sale of the property, because land is related to status in rural areas, as a result of which they are unable to actually what we call avail come up with sufficient income and avail a housing scheme in urban areas. Again, there are laws in urban areas, there are limitation in urban areas, which actually leads to what we call problem of what we call which leads to challenges for a rural immigrant to actually acquire a house in urban areas. Let's move to the other problem that actually exists, and it is going to be the topic of our what we call final question that would be discussing at the end of the lecture, and it is unemployment. As I said that there has been a spurt, there has been increase in the rate of urbanization, rate at which migration has occurred from what we call rural to urban areas. However, the rate at which the urban centers were able to generate employment has been pretty much low. So that actually leads to some kind of mismatch in which there has been what we call number has been higher on the number of people who have migrated, and employment generated tend to be at the lower end. So that's why it has led to the problem of unemployment even in urban center. I have to note one of the important what we call uh, data which came just 2 weeks back, as soon as what we call the new finance minister assumed her office, and it was the problem of 6.1% unemployment in urban centers, which is very much high when it comes to a growing economy. So that actually showcases that unemployment is a very major problem when it comes to what we call urbanization. Again, as I said, migration, if 85% of people who have migrated are concentrating in single place, that is Delhi, you can imagine that Delhi won't be able to generate that amount of employment. So there needs to some kind of what we call a balanced form of migration and planned form of migration is a requirement, is a need of the hour to address the challenge of unemployment as well. Then again, one of the problem is slums. I have to mention that what actually is defined as slums could be taken from the census definition. Census says that when the housing are crooked, what we call when the places is so much crumbled, the space is so less that it is not what we call it is not convenient, it is not convenient for a person to live. There is lack of windows, the sanitation and all the services are not present, and that actually, and yet again the problem of overcrowding is there, then that could be considered as an area of slum. Here again I would request the viewers to go through the census definition of slum and let me know the population of population, the total population of people who are living in slums. As far as I could recollect, it is around 150 million people who are still living in slums. If you have visited slums, or if you get a chance, you would actually understand what are the challenges that comes up with the problem of slums. Here again I would like to talk about some positive things, and that I would like to talk about how healthcare facilities were sanitation facilities were made available in the slums of Bangladesh. I have to say, please go through the case study where what we call the women organization especially have worked to ensure there is proper sanitation in slums of Bangladesh. It's a wonderful case study to quote your essay, GS mains, as well as optional paper. So slums again, there are slum redevelopmental program and other programs which are actually run what we call to ensure that the slum problem is being overcome. Here again I would like to talk about the famous slum of Mumbai, and it is the Dharavi slum. It is, well-known slum, and again, I believe, what we call the population. Nearly a million people are actually living in 1.7 kilometer square of area. Not only that, I have to say there is an economic aspect of slum as well. The around billion of dollars is actually generated when it comes to the leather business, the pot making business that is actually located in the slum area of Dharavi. So you have to understand how slums and economy is related. How economy is pulling what we call the formation of slum, and at the same time it is booming economy as well. So with this, let's move to the other problem associated with urbanization, and that is transport. When it comes to transport, one has to understand that transportation, usually people, what we call staying near the place of their work is rare. There might be issues in terms of the cost of living in such places, and henceforward, transport is very much required. Here, I would like to note the very much, revolutionary what we call revolutionary what we call transport that was provided by the Delhi government and central government, and that is metro transport that was possible. And if you had traveled in metro, you would actually understand, you would be able to understand how this transport problem could have been what we call very well addressed. However, there remains a lot of problem even in transportation. I have to mention, you must be regularly coming up with updates from in your friend circle, as well as popular memes are there in what we call internet, which actually talks about how the problem of transport is very grave when it comes to what we call the city of Bangalore. The city of Bangalore, there has been proposed even idea of what we call taxi, what we call taxi on what we call demand app based what we call helicopter service, or some drone service to actually overcome all this transport problem. Here again, I would like to what we call request the viewers to go through economic survey when it comes to urbanization. It was, I believe, prior to this year, what we call economic survey has talked about urban settlements and how transport problem could be overcome when it comes to urbanization. Let's move to the next problem, and it is one of the gravest problem when it comes to what we call urbanization. It is the environment and health. And I have to say that when I am talking about environment, I am talking about pollution in air, in terms of water, and the problem that we actually has to face when it comes to proper waste disposal. So proper waste disposal, I have to talk about the Ghazipur landfill, which is pretty much famous landfill when it comes to Delhi. Ghazipur landfill is famous for its notorious smell that is coming, the pungent smell it is coming, the what we call the problem that the underground water of pollution that actually occurs, the fumes, the constant fire that is present, the burning, it is present, which actually tends to disperse lot of what we call dust particles and smoke around the city. So that actually showcase that how waste disposal is a very big problem. I have to say that please go through prominent case study of waste disposal initiative that was taken in the city of Mysore in terms of Karnataka, and what we call Indore when it comes to what we call Madhya Pradesh, and let me know it in the comment section. Next problem that is associated with urban what urbanization, it is urban crimes. What actually happens in terms of urban crimes, there tend to be spurt in terms of crime only. There are people who would be making living on the basis of it. There is an what we call increased anonymity, the social structure which used to put social control among the people who usually get deviant is actually just non-existent a lot of time when it comes to urban center. And yet again there is a problem of other problem associated as well. There has been the police person to what we call population ratio is less, especially in urban areas. There are some dark areas which are actually not covered well, and due to which all those areas become problem of urban crimes. I have to mention that that is one of my concern that I actually feel as a citizen and one who is living in Delhi, that there has been a spurt in terms of gang wars and shooting, especially when it what we call weapons shooting, and it's at each other actually when it comes to the place of Delhi. So all this become an important problem when it comes to urbanization. I would also like to talk about this famous broken window theory when it comes to crimes, and basically it talks about a theory in which we have to ensure that the small what you call level of crime are being curbed so that the larger crime doesn't occur. For example, if you see a person who is drunk at that very day, what a daylight itself, and he's roaming and here and there, or what we call a person who is carrying a knife and going to what we call is creating what we call problem in such an area, all this thing actually could be reported very well, because these are where what we call the crime actually increases, might lead to greater what bigger crime. So please what we call please go through this broken window theory of crime and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. All this thing, have to say that what we call when I have must say that when it comes to urbanization and problems, government has taken steps in terms of remedies. I would be talking about government efforts, I would be talking at individual and corporate what we call level, and civil society as well. So as you could see, I am again what we call organizing my answer even when it comes to way forward properly in terms of multiple what we call levels. So all this organization actually tend to make your presentation pretty much clear, and it actually used whatever organize whatever thoughts you have, it helps you to organize very well and produce it in the what we call examination. It actually is bound to increase your marks when it comes to what we call answer writing. Let's talk about the government efforts. The popular government efforts is just of course popularly known as what we call the smart cities program, the smart city mission. Again, I would like to request the users to go through this smart city mission. It is one of the wonderful way, it especially when it comes to the competition based of what we call project approval of selection of a smart city, and the what we call down to up approach in which people and stakeholders are involved in this smart city mission. I'd request the viewers to go through it and tell me about this important pillars of a smart city in the comment section. Apart from that, remedies at individual levels also, we could have some we could have some personal habits which could actually help in countering the problem of urbanization. For example, this waste disposal, the government usually come up with all this blue dustbin and color coding of dustbin to ensure that organic dust organics what we call waste is put in green what we call green basket, and it is being recycled, and the non-organic one is being put it in the blue dustbin. All these things are actually what we call color coded to improve the habit of individual. However, it still remain at the hand of ourselves. We as a citizen of India should inculcate this good habits so that we are able to contribute in what we call overcoming the challenges that actually urbanization is bound to produce. Again, at the corporate level also, some just tweaks in terms of timing changes could actually help a lot. When it comes to what we call timing changes, we could actually talk about how if the timing of what we call working, if it is tweaked and it is just arranged so that peak hour traffic could actually reduce, it could be well distributed, then that is something we could do at corporate level. Here again, I would like to talk about one important habit, and that is water. If you are able to utilize water judiciously, irrespective of the place you are placed, not only rural areas, urban areas specifically, because you must be knowing that the there was a famous 0 day which was being approached in the Cape Town of South Africa. 0 day is basically the day in which per capita need of what we call water won't be able to be provided by the city municipal corporation. According to some report, Bangalore would become the first city to face such a scenario in upcoming future. So that actually shows that water scarcity is also something that could be tackled by good habits that we at an individual scale would be adopting. Let's move to the third kind of remedies, and it is civil society. Here I would like to talk about the Bangalore city report card, in which mass report card is being generated by providing what we call survey report among large number of people, and rating how services has been provided. Not only Bangalore city report card, the ease of living in it in terms of urban cities, their report also has come up. What we call the Ministry of Urban Housing and Development has taken care of this what we call reporting. So I request you to go through that index and let me know what are their important pillars in the comment section. Let's move to the final part of this lecture, and it is question. I would like to talk here about the important newest idea of urban employment guarantee. So let me talk about what we call the question is, does there exist a need of urban employment guarantee? Critically analyze. I would like to mention that urban employment guarantee would be something that would be in line with the rural employment guarantee, the Mahatma Gandhi rural employment guarantee, which was passed in, which started in 2006. So I have to as I said, unemployment is a pretty much great problem when it comes, big problem when it comes to urban centers. Here, as I said, I am talking about the amount of percentage of unemployment when it comes to what urban poverty that is existing. And as I said, one of the region of poverty is non-existent employment. So you could see 13.7% of people, one, and that is 1 in 7 people is living below poverty line. And as I said, Manrega has proven a very effective tool in terms of social empowerment as well as poverty alleviation, and henceforward we could actually think a need of urban employment guarantee. Let me talk about some specific points about when it comes to what we call employment guarantee from the small note that I have made. Here I would like to talk about the need for urban employment guarantee. So first of all, I am referring to the what we call I'm referring to the what we call the editorial that actually came about minimum employment guarantee, urban employment guarantee in the Hindu. So why we need this urban employment guarantee? Some of the reasons that could be said are, it addresses the concern of underemployment and unemployment. I have to request to the viewers that please make a distinction between underemployment and unemployment in the comment section. And then again, if there is a what we call urban minimum urban guarantee program, there would be public investment in towns. The services could improve. We could actually the urban commons, for example, there is a in rural areas, pond, what we call the village road, school, what we call school a compound, all this comes in Manrega, what we call rural common. So such kind of common needs to be generated even in urban center as well. For example, maintaining park or maintaining water reservoir. So all this thing could be utilized when if there exists a urban employment guarantee. And again it would be truly demand driven. And since there exist they're totally and we could anticipate a scenario in which people who are coming to the urban areas might not be what we call skilled. There is an informal skilling when it comes to what we call some report has suggested that only 6% of the population of India is skilled when it comes to certificate based skilling. So that actually says that even in urban centers there would be manual what we call manual labor which could be present. A good employment guarantee program could ensure that that manual labor get the right wage that is required. And yet again what we call we could actually think this in the larger dimension of article 21, in which a person would be living a fulfilling life which has been guaranteed as a fundamental right in the Constitution of India. So yet again what there are some challenges, yes, of course, when it comes to employment. What we call implementation challenges would include identification of person, what criteria it should be, what we call the cost who has to bear, and all this sort. And I would like to give a way forward in which what we call we should ensure that in line with the what we call village panchayat taking care of Manrega, the urban local bodies should be empowered to ensure that they are taking care of urban employment guarantee in urban areas. And yet again if the challenges could be funding, because we all know that urban local bodies are very much constrained when it comes to funding. They are not able to generate funds on their own. Yeah, that is also again one of the challenges that is actually associated to the problem of urbanization. With all this, you could actually conclude that there is a need of urban employment guarantee, and what are the modalities in which it should be implemented. So with all this, you would be able to conclude this chapter. And with this question, I would like to end this lecture on urbanization, the challenges it actually poses, and then again the remedies that we will be offering. That in the next chapter, next topic, next what lecture, I will be talking about social empowerment. Till then, I would like to say what we call good night, all the best. Bye bye.